General Audience number 16 of January 30th, 1980. The reality of the gift and of the act of giving, which is sketched in the first chapters of Genesis as the constitutive content of the mystery of creation, confirms that the irradiation of love is an integral part of this same mystery. Only love creates the good, and in the end it alone can be perceived in all its dimensions and its contours in created things, and above all in man. Its presence is the final result, as it were, of the hermeneutics of the gift we are carrying out here. Original happiness, the beatifying beginning of man, whom God created male and female, the spousal meaning of the body in its original nakedness, all of this expresses rootedness in love. This consistent giving, which goes back to the deep roots of consciousness and the subconscious and to the final levels of the subjective existence of both man and woman, and which is reflected in their reciprocal experience of the body, bears witness to rootedness in love. The first verses of the Bible speak of it so much that they remove all doubt. They speak not only about the creation of the world and about man in the world, but also about grace. That is, about the self-communication of holiness, about the irradiation of the Holy Spirit, which produces a special state of spiritualization in that first man. In biblical language, that is, in the language of revelation, the qualification first means precisely of God. Adam, son of God. Luke chapter 3. Verse 38. Happiness is being rooted in love. Original happiness speaks to us about the beginning of man, who emerged from love and initiated love. And this happened irrevocably, despite the subsequent sin and death. In his time, Christ was to be a witness to this irreversible love of the Creator and Father, which had already expressed itself in the mystery of creation and in the grace of original innocence. For this reason, also the common beginning of man and woman, that is, the original truth of their body and masculinity and femininity, to which Genesis chapter 2, verse 25 turns our attention, does not know shame. One can define this beginning also as the original and beatifying immunity from shame as the result of love. B, the mystery of original innocence, gift to the human heart. This immunity directs us toward the mystery of man's original innocence. Innocence is a mystery of man's existence before the knowledge of good and evil, and, as it were, outside of that knowledge. The fact that man exists in this way, before the breaking of the first covenant with his Creator, belongs to the fullness of the mystery of creation. If creation is a gift given to man, as we have already said, then its fullness and deepest dimension is determined by grace. That is, by participation in the inner life of God Himself, in His holiness. In man, this holiness is also the inner foundation and source of his original innocence. With this concept, and more precisely with that of original justice, theology defines the state of man before original sin. In the present analysis of the beginning, which paves for us the indispensable ways toward understanding the theology of the body, we must dwell on the mystery of man's original state. In fact, precisely this consciousness of the body, or even better, consciousness of the meaning of the body, on which we are trying to throw light through the analysis of the beginning, reveals the distinctive character of original innocence. What becomes perhaps most of all directly apparent in Genesis chapter 2, verse 25, is precisely the mystery of this innocence, which both the man and the woman bore within themselves from the beginning. The body itself of each is a witness of this characteristic, in some way, an eyewitness. It is significant that the statement contained in Genesis chapter 2, verse 25 about reciprocal nakedness, free from shame, is a statement unique in its kind in the whole Bible. So much so that it was never to be repeated. On the contrary, we can quote many texts in which nakedness is linked with shame, or even, in a still stronger sense, with defilement. In this wide context, the reasons are all the more visible for discovering in Genesis chapter 2, verse 25, a particular trace of the mystery of original innocence, and a particular factor of its radiation into the human subject. This innocence belongs to the dimension of grace contained in the mystery of creation, that is, to that mysterious gift made to man's innermost being, to the human heart, that allows both the man and the woman to exist from the beginning in the reciprocal relationship of the disinterested gift of self. Included in this is the revelation, together with the discovery of the spousal meaning of the body in its masculinity and femininity. One can understand why we speak in this case about revelation together with discovery. From the point of view of our analysis, it is essential that the discovery of the spousal meaning of the body takes place through original innocence. Even better, it is this discovery that unveils original innocence and makes it evident. Original innocence and consciousness of the spousal meaning of the body. Original innocence belongs to the mystery of man's beginning, from which he then separated himself by committing the original sin. This does not mean, however, that he is not able to approach this mystery by his theological knowledge. Historical man attempts to understand the mystery of original innocence, as it were, through a contrast, that is, by going back also to the experiences of his own guilt and of his own sinfulness. He seeks to understand original innocence as a characteristic that is essential for the theology of the body, taking as his point of departure the experience of shame. In fact, the biblical text points him in this direction. Original innocence is thus that which radically, that is, at its very roots, excludes the shame of the body in the relation between man and woman, that which eliminates the necessity of this shame in man, in his heart or his conscience. Although original innocence speaks above all about the gift of the Creator, about grace, which made it possible for man to live the meaning of the primary gift of the world, and in particular the meaning of the reciprocal gift of one person to the other through masculinity and femininity in this world. Nevertheless, this innocence seems to refer first of all to the interior state of the human heart, of the human will. At least indirectly, it includes the revelation and discovery of human moral consciousness, the revelation and discovery of the whole dimension of conscience, obviously before the knowledge of good and evil. In a certain sense, one should understand it as original righteousness. In the prism of our historical a posteriori, we are thus trying to reconstruct in some way the proper character of original innocence, understood as the content of the reciprocal experience of the body, as the experience of its spousal meaning, according to the testimony of Genesis chapter 2, verses 23 through 25. Since happiness and innocence are inscribed in the frame of the communion of persons, like two converging lines of man's existence in the very mystery of creation, the beatifying consciousness of the meaning of the body, that is, of the spousal meaning of human masculinity and femininity, is conditioned by original innocence. There is no obstacle, it seems, against understanding this original innocence as a particular purity of heart, preserving interior faithfulness to the gift according to the spousal meaning of the body. Consequently, original innocence conceived in this way manifests itself as a tranquil witness of conscience that, in this case, precedes any experience of good and evil. And yet, this serene witness of conscience is something all the more beatifying. One can say, in fact, that consciousness of the spousal meaning of the body in its masculinity and femininity becomes humanly beatifying only through this witness. We will devote the next meditation to this topic, namely to the link between man's innocence, purity of heart, and his happiness, which becomes evident in the analysis of his beginning.